Welcome to Easy Peasy Books, From Author to Authority, the lively and engaging podcast for business professionals who've always believed they have a book in them. I'm your host, Jillian Whitney. Join me as I chat with authors and industry experts from all around the world to explore simple strategies to write, publish, and leverage your business book. Whether you're an entrepreneur, executive, or an employee, this podcast is for you. Woohoo! And we're live. Well, kind of. We're live in the moment, but this is a previously recorded live when you're watching it. But we did it live. No edits, no cuts. We're just going to come through. And the reason why we're going live today, pre-recorded, is because I wanted Lynnaire to come on my show at a decent hour. And so this was the way that we could do it. So we're being out of the box. So, and Lynnaire, I am so excited that I finally get to have you on my live. You've been on my podcast before, but I get to finally have you on my live, even though it's 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's kind of fun. But anyways, welcome. So before we get stuck in, can you just introduce yourself, tell people who you are and what you do, and then we'll start chatting.
Fabulous. It's so nice to be here, Gillian. Thank you so much. I'm Lynnaire Johnston. I am a LinkedIn trainer, strategist, and author based in New Zealand. And I live for helping people to learn about LinkedIn to make sure that they master what is really a beast of a platform to achieve their professional goals.
Wonderful. So here's our topic today: why LinkedIn book marketing is more effective today. And I love this because it's almost quite meta, Lynnaire, and that here you are, you're a LinkedIn expert. You're noted throughout the world as being like the top expert for New Zealand. You're on so many lists. I've known you for years. I'm just in awe of you. You know, you're just an amazing person. You have so much knowledge. And you wrote a book on LinkedIn. And then, of course, you marketed on LinkedIn. So I thought, who would be the perfect person to talk about LinkedIn marketing of a book other than you? Because you are just amazing. So this is a fabulous topic. So we're going to start with your first book today, which was Linkability. And first of all, Lynnaire, tell us a little bit about your book.
Sure. Well, it's Linkability, 4 Powerful Strategies to Maximize Your LinkedIn Success. And it came about because I one morning woke up to discover that the Social Media Marketing Institute of Australia, an organization I'd never heard of, had ranked me in their list of top 20 LinkedIn experts Asia Pacific. And so what does an expert always have, Gillian? They always have a book. And so I set about writing a book to back up this assertion made by someone else that I was a LinkedIn expert. And I'd really been writing about LinkedIn for a while, but didn't consider myself an expert. But boy, have I learned a lot in the time since, because LinkedIn is one of those platforms. Well, it's the only platform really where you can get out there and market what you're doing, who you are, your business services to the business audience. And so, you know me, Gillian, I'm an absolute fan of LinkedIn and really like the fact that it is a perfect place for people with a book for business to market and promote their work.
Wow. That's a fabulous story. And I love that. So so we got to go back. So you released your book. I think I did my homework in 2020, correct?
Yes.
That's when you released your book.
I wrote it during COVID.
One of those I wish I had done that. I'm like one of the few people that I don't know, I frittered it away. But you wrote your book, you got it, you self-published.
Yes.
Self-published, you got your book. And had you ever promoted someone else's book before your own? Was that part of your wheelhouse?
Yet no, not in that kind of a sense at all. So when it came to my own book, I was working in the dark, really. I had been working with Jackie Lane, the book advisor, on my book. So I've not written a book before like this. And so I wanted to make sure I did the job properly because there's no point in expert having a book about their area of expertise. It's not well done. You want it to add to your reputation, enhance it. and not do the reverse. So I wanted to make a really good professional job of it. And so what I found, Gillian, was that I really needed to promote the book more before I published it. Now, I'm going to put my hand up here and tell you that I didn't do as good a job with it as I might have done. Now, certainly it's true that there are more features today that we can use to promote our work than there was back in 2020, even though that's only 4 years ago. But I didn't also build a network, a tribe, people interested in my book before I published. And I am really strongly recommending that anybody who's thinking of writing a book, they start the process before they've even put a word on paper. Well, what part of paper these days? Because I really think that if you are able to take your audience with you right from the beginning, from the germ of the idea, if you like, then you will build up those people who are interested in what you do. And eventually, of course, what will happen is they'll be buyers of your book. So you're creating a demand in advance. And that is one thing I wish I had done a whole lot better than I actually did.
That's interesting. And you know, it's interesting. I'm an introvert. So introverts and when I wrote my first book, I didn't tell anybody. I'm just like, okay, I wrote a book and I put it up there. But I guess there's some people, it's natural for them. They're just like, every post, help me choose my cover, you know, like they do all sorts of things. So you're actually saying that's a great bit of marketing, is bringing people along on the journey with you.
Absolutely. And I wish I had done that. But for me, it was a confidence thing, Gillian, because I'm not a natural salesperson. I might be gregarious and outgoing, but I'm not a natural salesperson. But also, I really felt like I was a fraud at that stage because I didn't consider myself an expert. But here I was writing a book about a topic that I was essentially still learning about then. Well, to be fair, I'm still learning about it today. But back then, I really didn't feel that I was the expert. And I think that that was part of it. But I'm really wanting to say to somebody who might be thinking of doing this is that even if you don't feel like you're an expert right now, believe me, by the time you finish your book, you will be. So you might as well put it out there right now and let people know that you know your subject and know what you are trying to do in your book. I think you have to be really clear on what you want your book to do and who you want it to reach. And that way, you are going to promote it to the right people in the right way, right from the beginning.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I like too that this whole idea of, you know, we all get nervous. And I appreciate that you share that vulnerability, because I think a lot of people don't recognize that when you go to hit that publish button, you're just like, oh my gosh, what if people just say this is the worst book ever? There's that fear. It's real. It's real. And I think, and I can tell you personally, I love your book, Lynnaire. And your book is timeless in that it's like, I like that you broke it down into 4 things. You know, you covered 4 topics, because if you think about it, that's kind of a key, is like, okay, what would you cover? Everything with LinkedIn? Like, forget about it. But you covered 4 things, and those 4 things are timeless. So I can get your book 4 years later and it's still relevant. It still is helpful. And especially, you know, it's good for newbies because it gives you a strategy. But okay, so here's my question. You didn't really know what you were doing, you know, like we all do. You know, you start out and it's like, okay, I wrote this book. You had a wonderful coach who was helping you get that book together. So then came the day that, like, okay, you got the book baby in your hands. What was your strategy, Lynnaire? What did you do?
Well, first of all, I did a little dance, because when you first see your first book and you take your first copy out of the box, you just feel a huge sense of accomplishment, because it is a huge accomplishment. And you'll know that, Gillian, because you've done this more than once as well. And it's a lot of hard work to write a book. It takes quite a long time. And so once you have it in your hot little hand, you deserve to celebrate. And I think that is the main thing at that point, is just to go, I've done it. and to give yourself a really good pat on the back and say, fantastic. Now, what am I going to do with this? So when you've got your book, you need a launch. And I think that online launches are a great way to go. You and I both have got experience around this now. And because of the features, mainly LinkedIn Lives, that LinkedIn now offers, which weren't available back when my book came out, we have so much opportunity to be able to talk with people about our book in a way that really helps them understand what it is we're trying to say and the messages that we're trying to share. So I think that launching is the first thing you need to do. Once, of course, you've got your book in your hand and you can put it up on your bookshelf behind you and show people that it actually does exist. So a launch is the first thing. I think the second thing is to ask people to give you testimonials. So send copies out to people. If you haven't already done so before it's published, send copies out to people that you consider reputable and will say good things about your book, that you can then put into your posts, because you need now to write a series of posts about your book. And I would also recommend that people set up a LinkedIn company page for their book. Now, if they already have a LinkedIn company page for their business, then they can set up a showcase page or a product page for their book and put information about the book there. So it's more of this organic marketing, if you like. But you need a plan. Gillian, it's all very well talking about these things, but you really do need to have a plan. And so a content strategy. What post you're going to put up? Are you going to post once a week about your book? How are you going to post about your book? Are you going to have photos of people who sent you great reviews? Are you going to use testimonials? Are you going to do video, which I thoroughly recommend, as you know? You need to really work out how you are best to get to a wide audience and talk about your book. But here's the thing. I think it's important to not just go, please buy my book. It's important to tell people what's in your book and what they are going to learn from it. So you're not giving away all the secrets, but you're telling them the kind of information that they're going to get and the results that they will achieve by doing that. So right at the start, I talked about people achieving their professional goals. So my thing with LinkedIn or linkability is that if you put these 4 strategies into practice, then you will be going down the track of achieving your professional goals. So what are the results that people are going to get from reading your book? Because we all buy many more books than we ever get to read, Gillian, and we want to make sure that people not only buy it, that's the first thing, but also that they read it. That is the second thing. I also wanted to mention to you too, something I think is important, is to make your book available in different formats. So some people like me like to hold a copy, a physical copy in their hands. Some people like to listen to it. They like to hear an audio book. And some people are really happy to read it on their Kindle. And so consequently, making those different formats available for your book, it's 2024 after all, I think is really going to help sales, and it certainly helped mine.
So you have yours as an ebook, you have yours as a Kindle book, you have it available as a paperback, and I have both because you lovely sent me a copy, autographed copy, so I treasure that. And so did you ever think of, do you have an audio book or you do have it on audio? Wow, I did not realize that. So was that hard? Was that a hard thing to do?
Look, it was surprisingly hard, and I was really astonished at how difficult I found it, because I come from a radio broadcasting background, and so you'd think I'd be used to doing things like reading. I was a news reader for several years, for heaven's sake, but when it came to reading my own book, Gillian, I found it extremely difficult, and I was really surprised by that. But I ploughed through it because I think that if you have a voice that's not really going to put people off, then you need to read your own book, because it sounds much better coming from you. Because people they're seeing you in their minds, right? They've seen you on LinkedIn, they've seen your maybe videos, photos of you, and so you want them to hear your voice in their heads, reading your own words. And so I really recommend, if you're going to the effort of putting together a book that is a really good length. I mean, we're talking about a book that's not cheap to do an audio book, of course. And so you want to make sure that your book is going to be worth doing that. Not all books are going to be worth putting on audio, but I really recommend it anyway, even if it's not a super long book. Look, my book's not that long, but I really do think it's a great idea. It gets more difficult when you've got a co-authored book, but really, if you've got your own solo book, definitely having an audio version is a great idea.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so have you marketed, because I don't recall any of your posts about your audio book. So I'm wondering, have you ever marketed that with like an audiogram or snippets or anything?
Well, the answer to the question is no, and mainly because I haven't really thought about doing that. Now, you and I talked about audio snippets before, and in fact, I saw one of your audio snippets in my brand new Videos for You video feed on my app this morning. So I really like those, but I haven't done them myself. And I do think that they're a really good idea to be doing. And I really have no satisfactory excuse to not, Gillian. So I need to get that one organised.
I love it. I love it. Well, I'm gonna keep you accountable, Lynnaire, because I think that would be fabulous. Because to be honest with you, I think you have a fabulous voice, and I agree with you that if it's a fiction book, it's a different story. Then you want to go get those. You want to go get those voice artists, and those folks. They're amazing, and I highly recommend voice artists. But I think for a business book, we do want to hear the author, because ultimately the business book, in my opinion, a business book is it's like a business card on steroids. And so you think about it, every time we listen to the book, you are more credible, you're an authority figure the more and more we hear you. And it's very natural to just go, this woman speaks wonderfully. Let's get her on stage, which of course, wouldn't we all be love to be invited to come on stage and talk about stuff from our book? So it's just natural. So that's amazing. I love that idea of an audio book. I will be holding you accountable.
You raised something else there, Gillian, that I think I'd like to have a chat to you about as well. And that is podcasts. And reading your book or talking about your book in situations where you're doing maybe a LinkedIn Live, you're on somebody's podcast or a YouTube Live, whatever it might be. But having the opportunity to do that and be asked questions about your book is a really good marketing tool. And I did do some of that as a marketing tactic very early on in the piece. And I found it very useful because it helped me to really hone what I was saying about the book and the information I wanted people to know about it. And also it gave me experience of being on a podcast, because it's been quite some years since I did any broadcasting work. And consequently, you do need a bit of a refresher and to practice it from time to time. And so being on other people's podcasts, talking about your work, is a really good thing, because it spreads the word about your book, of course, but it gives you the opportunity to really learn how to discuss your book in a way that people want to learn about it. So I really recommend podcasts for people, and LinkedIn Lives and LinkedIn audio events for anyone who is wanting to market their book.
So LinkedIn audio events, what could you, my brain is like, what could you do with a LinkedIn audio event? Would you do it like a ask the author, or you would just tell snippets from your book? What are some ideas?
Well, I think both of those are really good ideas. So you could have someone else hosting it and you answering questions about your book, just as you would do on a LinkedIn Live or a podcast. Or you could host your own. I'm a great fan of hosting audio events, Gillian, and I think that that's a really good way to be able to control the narrative, control how things are going, and then also you can then have people who come up on the stage and they ask questions, and you then, as the authority, can answer those questions. I think there's an opportunity potentially to read parts of your book or to talk about parts of your book. As if you were launching a book or doing a reading at a bookstore, right? You would read a section of your book and then you would take questions from the audience. Why not just transfer that to audio events that you can invite people to, and you could get a big audience, probably much bigger than would turn out to a bookstore, I have to say. And then they can be part of it too, and then they all feel they're part of your tribe, part of your audience, and part of your fan network, if you like, because there is some kind of authority that just gets conferred when you have a published book. Whether or not it's published by a mainstream publisher or you do it yourself, if you say that you are a published author, it just really tells people that you are an expert. And I don't think you can go past that. And as you said, it's a great, fantastic business card. And I really do believe that it is a brilliant thing to do if you've got any aptitude for writing, you've got a message you want to say, write a business book. And Gillian, your books are they're a good snackable size. You can read your books in a couple of hours, right? You wouldn't want to read mine in a couple of hours. Believe me, you'd have gone to sleep, but it probably takes a little longer than that. But books don't have to be long. And I think that there is just a market for shorter books as there is for longer books. And it has exactly the same effect. It still confers that authority. And on that, nobody can argue with you because you're a published author.
I love that. That's so true. So, okay, we could write text posts. We could do, we can do graphics. Graphics are great. And you know, especially when you see people holding up the book and, all those kind of posts, those are great of other people when they do that. And of course, you could repost it. You could share it on your feed if you don't have it yourself. That's one way you could do it. You could do videos. What are some things that maybe you go, this didn't get a lot of traction? Like, is there anything that you just kind of thought, I thought that would do better, but it didn't?
Well, over time, of course, in the last 4 years, LinkedIn's changed dramatically, as you and I both know, with new features and how the algorithm behaves. And back then, when I was first writing about LinkedIn, articles had just peaked in popularity and they were disappearing down the other side of the hill. Now, you and I know that articles are an excellent way to be able to get longevity on your content. And so I am a fan of using articles for promotion of your book. And here's why. You can make your article as long as you want. You can write what you want. You can have it beautifully formatted. You can add images from your book. You could have reviews from people of your book, and you can put videos in there of other people talking about your book. You're talking about your book. You're reading your book. And you can update your article over a period of time. And Gillian, I'm sure you're finding the same, that some of our older articles, when we repurpose them by adding new content to them, get a whole new lease of life and get some really good views. Plus, they're all searchable on Google. And that SEO factor, I think, is hugely important. Because we both know that posts come and go, but if you are doing something that's got a longer life, a longer shelf life, then that longevity and credibility will stand you in good stead. So I would be doing more articles about my book. If I was doing another book now, that is one of the things that I would definitely be doing, is more articles about maybe some of the major topics in my book. Not enough that you are going to tell everybody everything that's in your book, but certainly enough to whet their appetites to go and buy it.
I think that's a great idea. And, I think the thing is that you can't assume everybody knows you have written a book and that you have it available in different formats. And I think the mistake that many of us make, waving her hand here, I'm the first one, is we launch a book and then we that's it, then we get on with our lives and we do something else, as opposed to people will say, oh, I didn't, you go on and oh, I didn't know you wrote a book about that, or, whatever. And I think the thing is that you have to be strategic. This is what I'm getting from you today, Lynnaire, that not only launch your book, but continue and have a strategy of letting people know it's there.
You also need to put it in your LinkedIn profile, Gillian.
Yes.
And that's such an obvious thing to say, isn't it? But now there are so many places in your profile you can talk about your book, mention your book, have photos of your book, have videos of your book. And so I think that you need to start by putting your book in your banner. You certainly need to put it in your headline. And what about in your featured section? And then add it as a role in your experience. You might even put it in as a project and definitely put it in as a publication. Because I just think that making people really aware of your book is, as you say, really important. But by the time you spent 5-6 months writing it, getting it published, most people go, just want to see the back of this thing. I am so over it. But we forget that that's really just the start of the process, in the sense of now we need to tell people about our book and what it can do to help them. And so I think that putting it on your profile before you've got it published, aspiring author is a really good thing to be saying. Put it on your profile before you get it published and start to get reviews, get recommendations, add testimonials, put it in your about section. I think you can see where I'm going with this.
Yes,
your profile.
Spread the word. And to be honest with you, Lynnaire, when I saw that you would put your books in your banner, I went and put my books on my banner, because I think we need to look at what other people are doing and going, I need to be bold about this and let people know. And I have done the same thing with my profile. I've put author, and then I do it for each one of my books. So it's like author and then the experience, so it's like, if you've done multiple books, tell people about multiple books, because you just never know what's going to be the right fit or whatever for each person. So it's so important. Never thought of publications. So publications, I'm like drawing a blank with that. What is publications? Okay. Is a section on your profile?
Yes, you might remember there was something called accomplishments a few years ago, and there were about 9 different sections of that included honours and awards and licenses and certifications, etc. Then they split that out and made them all separate. So they do sit at the bottom of your profile, which is unfortunate, but they do sit underneath your recommendations. So if you put something right in there, it's quite useful. It's not as good as putting it in other places, the publications, because you can't add lots of media. You know how you can put videos and images and all kinds of other different bits and pieces into areas of your profile, like your experience and featured. You can't do that with publications. But I still think it's an important thing to add, because the more people know about it, the better. What if somebody's just skipped down your profile to the recommendations and they just see that sitting there under the recommendations as a publication? Oh, Gillian's written a book. I didn't know that. And then it's going to pique their interest to make them go and have a look at other parts of your profile to find out more. And so the more places you can put information about your book, the better, so far as I'm concerned.
And also, don't be afraid to put the link to go buy the book, because it's like, don't assume that people know where to get it, because I know that, some people, I've gone through Amazon, you've gone through Amazon, but a lot of people, they just sell their book on their website, or, it's available in independent bookstores. So, don't assume we know how to find it. Make it easy for people. Easy peasy. That's my motto.
And that's absolutely right, because sometimes we can just forget those important things. Not everybody buys things from Amazon. So I have my book available in all kinds of places. You can find it just about anywhere. And also don't forget libraries. Local libraries might also be happy to stock your book, particularly if it's local to you. So dropping off a few copies to your local library is a good way to get more people to see it too, because there'll be people who read it but don't necessarily want to buy it. And so you want to be able to reach those people as well.
That's brilliant. So, wow, we have covered a lot of different things. Is there anything that I have not asked you?
You're right. We have covered a whole load of things. No, I think that's really important, just that people recognize they need to start working on the promotion of their book before they publish. That is the key message, I think, and also to use as much of LinkedIn as they possibly can to tell people about their book and to promote it and just share some ideas from it to be able to build that tribe of people so that when they do publish it, there are people who are going to go on Amazon and buy it. Don't forget to have a launch party too. I think a launch party is a great thing to do, Gillian, and I really enjoy having a launch party, and I enjoy attending launch parties. They're so much fun.
They really are fun. I've hosted quite a few in my lifetime now. I feel like I'm queen of the launch parties.
I think you are.
But they're very exciting. They're very fun. And I think, if anything, they really do your heart well, because you recognize that people are cheering for you. They're happy for you. And it's just a great way for, people to just be part of the celebration, and they're going to spread the word. They're going to spread the word and get it out there to the people that need to see it. And that's, I think, really what good book marketing is you're helping get that book out to the people that are looking for that book, that have been waiting for that book to be written. They can go and do that. So that's amazing. That's great. Well, Lynnaire, we have come to the end of our 30 minutes today. Is there any final words of wisdom you want to share before we head on out?
If you want to write a book based on your expertise, simply be confident. Be confident that there is an audience who want to hear your market. Don't be a shrinking violet about this. If you're going to put the time and money and effort into writing a book, you need to tell people about it and have the confidence to do it. That is my main message I think I'd like to leave with people today, Gillian.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Lynnaire. This has been an amazing episode, and thank you so much. And everyone else, we will see you back next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Easy Peasy Books, from author to authority. If you found value in today's episode, I'd be grateful if you could leave us a review. It helps other aspiring authors discover our podcast. To learn more about writing, publishing, and leveraging your business book, visit my website at easypeasybooks.com.